Good morning, everybody. I feel between the minister and you've pinched most of my good lines already. Right, when this comes up, here we go. I'm going to take some examples from Britain, but actually I'm going to take some examples from a couple of other places too. Why? We're very good at thinking how different we are. But actually, you know, the laws of physics are pretty similar the world over. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Let's just think what we're going to talk about. We're not going to talk about transport. So the train spotters amongst you for the next half hour are going to be pretty bored. I'm going to talk about the reason you do this stuff and how that changes the way you do it. I'm going to talk about the economic effects you can achieve with better connectivity. And because that's a bit dry and talks to your head, listening to our speaker last night at dinner, I want to talk to the heart as well. I want to talk about the social effects of an economy which leaves cities behind, where you end up with a two-speed country between the major business capital, often characterized as paved with streets of gold, and regional cities flatlining with the social issues and problems that come from a lack of jobs. So, somewhere in it there will be a little bit of rail, and it's right at the start, I think. Yeah. I want to say, because I started with, it's not really about rail. High-speed rail is nearly as old as me. It is actually well understood, whether it's high-speed rail or fast rail or faster rail or a little bit faster rail. The technology is there, it's proven. I said the laws of physics are the same, the technology is international. You can go plenty places and see everything from the archetypal bullet train, which every politician gets photographed in front of, through to improved, regenerated, existing railway with the technology exists, it works, get over it. It's not interesting. We've learned a few things in those last 55 years. If you go Googling high-speed rail, you see a lot about, oh, we can get rid of domestic air transport and stuff like that. That is almost irrelevant. You count the numbers of people that travel by air domestically, even in a country which seems to depend on air, inland air. It's actually tiny numbers. In Britain, I can fit everybody who travels between some of our major cities by air into one train a day. So it's quite important to realize that this is, being a public transport system, it is a mass transport system. There was a statistic thrown out earlier by the minister. I'm going to go further than that. One new fast rail line carries more people than at least two motorways. At least two motorways. And yet the land take is about a third of a motorway. So if you actually care about your land, you don't want to put tarmac everywhere. That was a 20th century solution to a 19th century problem. We're in the 21st century now. The second thing is, long distance actually has very few people traveling. The whole of a city doesn't get up in the morning wanting to be 5 hours away. What matters is travel between cities that are quite close together, but too far apart to work together. People who commute, but commute too long for it to be an acceptable commute. So we're talking in a shorter distance, and we've also come to understand that along with the longer distance, very limited stop city-to-city travel, you have capacity, because of all that capacity on this system, to fit in regional traffic, serving more local communities. So it's not just a very long distance thing. In fact, it's not primarily a very long distance thing. Now, that's about trains. I put this slide up because I often talk to transport audiences and technical audiences, and any point I'm going to make with this slide is one thing. The only thing that matters at this stage in your development is answering the question, why are we doing it? If you can nail why we're doing it, and you can get bipartisan support on why you're doing it, and you can get city and regional and local understanding of why you're doing it, then you can give it to the engineering community and the railway community to sort it out, to get the right solution. But if you don't start with a really clear understanding of why you're doing it, people will go off on a spree, and it will be an engineer's sort of toy, really. So, where we got to? It's more than a railway. When you come to do things like benefit cost, the stuff that Treasury is really interested in, it's very tempting to think about the transport benefits. We know how to do those. Time saved, number of people, fare box, all that stuff. Very rarely would an intervention that is as dramatic as the Minister is talking about between Hamilton and Auckland, or anywhere else in the world, and what I'm going to talk about in a minute, is it really justified by transport benefits, direct transport benefits? They're good, but they're not exciting. There is a second transport benefit, which people often forget, is you're decongesting the existing transport networks, whether it be road or rail or wherever. And you've got to think, how are we going to re-exploit that existing capacity on the heritage networks, not just think about anything you do new. Now that adds to it a bit. Now we get to the interesting stuff. You're only doing this to activate cities or to make new connections between people and jobs, or between people and tourism, which is another sort of industry. So understanding how you're going to change a city, how you're going to change the region between cities, what development do you want and where, and what is the value of better connectivity, that's the real sweet spot of the right proposition. I'll give you an example of that in a minute. Now, the city itself, or the place where you have a station, is going to develop. But then how you connect that into the wider region will determine how localized the benefit is. So the fourth tier of benefit comes from technical word integration with other transport, with other plans. You can't serve everywhere on the planet with a fast rail system. You can connect a whole region into it. The benefits will be proportionate to how well it's connected. When you put those four things together, you've now got very often a cracking business case to invest. Now, this is the other slide I want to spend some time on before. So I'm sort of throwing out principles here because everywhere the absolute solution will be different. You've got to work out the right solution for you, but you've got to work off these principles. And I've got three numbers up here. You've probably read most of the slide already, but I'm going to have to pull you back a bit. 30 minutes, the 30-minute city. This is not just a marketing tag, it's real. Go into your history books, you'll find ancient Rome was a 30-minute city. Venice is still a 30-minute city. Vienna is a 30-minute city. The city of London was a 30-minute city. Only with urban transport has the size of a city physically expanded. But I can point you to any city in the world and say the 30-minute city is the city that works as a single entity. The 30-minute city is a spontaneous city where people do business, etc. Beyond that, you can sprawl. This seems to be an Antipodean speciality, but it's also an American one. But the sprawl is not as efficient, it's not as productive. The economic wealth tails off. You have to have a 30-minute city to work as a single city. But what we're really talking about is connecting city and connecting people between cities, and that's where the 1 hour comes in. If you're commuting, an hour is each way is a reasonable budget to get the right job. Now, I know people say to me, oh, New Zealand, just as they said to me in Australia, we're tough here, we'll commute for bloody hours. What are you, stupid? Because your productivity nosedives, and there is a social disbenefit. When you only recognize your kids on Facebook, you're in trouble. An hour, it's not precisely, but an hour on average is a reasonable commitment to find the right job. If you're a business, you can attract people with the right skills to your business if they're within an hour, because they won't have to lift up their kids, their family, their schooling, and shift it to you. So you've got a much bigger market of employment to draw from. We can also see that pretty much in any culture, most businesses do business with people they can meet within that sort of hour radius. Yeah, you can connect with anybody on the planet. Great, by internet, virtually. Who do you do business with? You do business still with people you can shake their hand, look them in the eye, and go, we'll sign this contract because I trust you. You can't do that on the internet. In fact, it's remarkable what you can't do on the internet. Socially, people keep up with friends. Again, my children have got friends all over the planet. But the people they really keep up with are the people they meet pretty spontaneously. They don't have to go, I've got a free day in about 3 months' time. They go, I'll see you at 4 o'clock. I'll leave work a bit early. I'll be over to you in an hour. Which is just as well, because otherwise procreation gets really difficult. Now, 60 minutes is the key to this. Both at a business level, your head, and at a social, human level, which is about you as a person. I put one other number up there, which is 2 hours. Not quite so important, but the reason I put it up there is most countries have got a business capital where only certain specialist activities will occur. The scale of the country, it doesn't matter how big it is, the big specialists will be in one place. The corporate lawyers, the takeover bunnies, usually politicians if it's the same capital, but not always. Like you, there's plenty of places where there's a political capital and a business capital. What really matters is the business capital. That's where access to finance to grow a business really is. Now, there's something about corporate lawyers and corporate financiers that you need to understand. They haven't evolved from cavemen. They live in a cave. You will find they all live within about 100 meters of each other. They have coffee together, they eat together, they sleep together, they do business together, they poach off each other together. They're happy. They all speak the same weird language. They live in an enclave, a cave. If you go to Sydney, that cave is called Barangaroo. I suspect I've spotted the cave in Auckland. Now, the thing about being in a cave and being a caveman, and then the analogy goes to rats, so I won't keep on with it, is they kind of mentally like to get out to a place and get back in a day, because it's kind of safe in their cave. If you're more than about 2 hours away, you don't exist. You're beyond their horizon. They can't see you. They'll be really reluctant to come and find you. It's a real trek to go to them. It's really hard to have access. Now, it's not quite so important. It's not as important as 1 hour, but it's still a factor. Now, the other thing is, longer people-to-people leisure, you think, where do you go for a weekend? How much time will you invest in going to for tourism or to meet family and friends? And around 2 hours, most places, is about it. After that, the equation between travel and time you got there it doesn't really work. So 2 hours is kind of important for that as well. At 2 hours, you go and see your parents, and you for the weekend. If it's much more than 2 hours, they come and see you and you never get rid of them. Now, I'll get on to Britain now. Yeah, we're bigger than New Zealand in population. We are growing fast. We are urbanizing just like everywhere else. The big city regions, particularly across England, are where you can see them at night. And whilst we've done a huge amount of developing road and rail, they tend to put people much more than that 1 hour apart, even though they're only 100, 150, 200 kilometers. We learnt a lot when we did High Speed 1, or the link to the Channel Tunnel. We don't pay image consultants, so we had High Speed 1, we're now doing High Speed 2, and next we'll do High Speed 3. That's the limit of our imagination. Let's have a look at this slide. Cost £5 billion. Just keep that number in your head. It doesn't matter about the currency. It's about ratios. And we started by running the odd international train, and that's great for Frenchmen who want to come to the civilized capital of Europe, which is London. What has made this worthwhile is the change it has made to eastern Kent, down here on the bottom right corner. The towns, I think you call them cities, of Ashford, Dover, Folkestone, Canterbury, Ramsgate, places left behind. They're not that far from London, 140 kilometres, 130 kilometres, but 2 hours. Young people did not commute 2 hours. What they did was leave. You're looking at towns which are being hollowed out. The traditional industries like coal mining is shut. The young people leaving, the only people left are the unskilled, largely looking after old people. Economy more than flatlining, economy dropping. What was the impact of connecting this whole city region, or region of cities, small regional cities, with fast rail? Because the trains we're using to connect them don't have to go that fast. They're not whizzy Japanese high-speed jobs. They're medium speed. Oh, they happen to be Japanese medium speed jobs. What happened, first of all, is that young people didn't need to leave home anymore to get a decent job in London at London wages. And they brought that back into the economy, and the economy started to pick up a little bit because now there's some money in the economy. The second thing is quite a lot of people moved out of London because actually it's quite a nice place to live, the livability thing that people talk about. And they brought more professional jobs. They brought a lot more money into the local communities. And you started to see new businesses, population-serving businesses grow up, as well as population-serving jobs like schooling, like healthcare. And we started to understand that every wealth-creating job that relocated to East Kent drove another 2 jobs, sometimes perhaps even more than that, 2 jobs of population supporting. All sorts of jobs. Builders, coffee shops, restaurants. So it's not just a cadre of white-collar professionals commuting to London and living in this community. It's jobs for everybody through the social and economic chain. It's not just about the people who travel. In fact, it's primarily not about the people who travel. They are the wealth creators. These are new jobs. Then we discovered that tourists, everybody piles into London, done Big Ben, tick, were prepared to spend an hour of their life, their limited life in London, going to real Britain away from London. But they weren't prepared to go that far. And these are not bucket and spade tourists. These are tourists who are prepared to spend genuine money. They were delighted to come to cities like Canterbury. Anybody know Canterbury? It's beautiful. But it was pretty dead high street. Now that high street is bursting with day tourism kind of businesses. Actually, they're now 7-day-a-week businesses because in the day they're serving tourists, in the evening they're serving people coming back from London, at the weekend they're serving all sorts of people. So we have established that the effect of this 5 billion railway on the economy of Eastern Kent, by putting it within an hour, is at least in the first 10 years twice the cost of building that railway. The benefit in transport terms is quite marginal. In fact, it's extremely marginal. The benefit is in the economic uplift, which is why we don't talk about this as a transport project, we talk about it as an economic regeneration project. And the social ills of that region have plummeted too, because unemployment has plummeted. The sorts of issues you get and you read in the paper about left behind Britain do not exist here anymore, because it's a really thriving place. And that's given us the confidence to plan something more ambitious, which is more about the north-south divide, principally in England. London is the Auckland of England, probably more so than Auckland is. But if you go north 2 hours, the wages are half, the GDP per person per capita is half, the office rents are a quarter, cost of land is order of magnitude. It's left behind Britain. The network is not really about transport at all. It's about connecting up the regional cities so that they are connected to each other, door to door in under an hour, not station to station, door to door. It's not good enough station to station. And they're connected back into the City of London in under 2 hours. And that puts about 80% of the population of Britain, sorry, not of Britain, of England, within those parameters. So Birmingham becomes the new centre of England, because it's less than an hour to the third city, Manchester, less than an hour to Leeds, less than an hour to London. And that's where businesses have started to move several years before we've got a spade in the ground. At the moment, 100 out of the 100 top companies in England, are headquartered in London. They're starting to move out. We're starting to see move out to Manchester. You've heard Howard's spiel about Manchester, because it's actually a bloody nice place to be. But we will connect it so that it is a very efficient place to be in the economy of the country. But it's also about corridors. This may be a bit relevant to the Hamilton corridor, I don't know. Not for me to say. Here is a series of medium-sized cities running up, which I call the manufacturing corridor, but it's also a technology corridor. It's cities like Birmingham, which are historic industrial cities. Cities like Sheffield, which were dead on their feet 20 years ago, but have been reinvented as cities of research and advanced manufacturing. Now that brings me to another point. This is not a transport initiative, I said. It is a whole of government initiative, which says this city is going to specialize in this. We will channel research monies, we will channel the tertiary sector, we will channel innovation grants, so this city can grow. And then the bit that's missing from it is its connectivity to the places it needs to grow with, by a mixture of new line, that's the red stuff, by a mixture of upgrading existing lines. We are making a series of cities really close to each other, 1 hour pretty much from one to the furthest. Some of them become almost a virtual city, 30 minutes, and you can see the numbers there. We will change the nature of this whole region of England, from Leeds, the second financial capital, working with Sheffield, the new manufacturing capital, working with the East Midlands, where there's a lot of innovation of small businesses, and Birmingham, the traditional manufacturing centre. None of those can stand alone in the 21st century. Together, they can. Before you think this is a peculiarly British or English phenomenon, Let me take you to a country of 5 million people. Bit more scale that you might be familiar with. And it's called the Czech Republic. And here, everyone's heard of Prague. It's the dominant capital city. It's up there on the crossroads. The cities to the south, around it, that are typically 2 to 3 hours away, they may be only 100, 120 kilometers. The transport network is rubbish. And the rail transport network is rubbishist. They and we will work together to connect them with these same parameters. Prague, a city of tourism. Brno, beautiful city down here in the bottom right corner, is also a city of IT. Between that and Prague, they will grow together as cities of commerce. Out there to the far right, there's a city called Ostrava, the Sheffield of Czech Republic. That's where the advanced manufacturing will be. You begin to see a thread here. It's about whole government intervention into what will be the future of the country, of which connecting cities and connecting people is an enabler. It is not a transport project. Now, in the last few minutes, I said you grow around a new station. Actually, the station is entirely the wrong word. Each place is not just a transport interchange. It has to be seen as a gateway to the city and a gateway to the region. And we can't be frightened about the fact that we will get into the big cities, because that's where the CBD is, that's where business is, that's where people want to be most. But we can also, sorry, I'm catching up the slides. We also need people to have easy access. Could be with their car, could be with public transport. And you don't, if you're connecting cities up well within an hour, you don't want to spend an hour getting to the station. So you've got to think about that whole connectivity thing. Some cities are quite small. They're not actually worth getting into the middle of. You don't actually want to disrupt them. But if you can build a station where you can connect them into the center, you will get most of the same benefits at much less cost and much less impact, environmental impact. You have to understand that where you put a station, though, is where business will want to be, because it is the best connected place to other cities and to the capital. And there are examples from Lyon, the second city of France, through to Shinagawa in Japan, two very different cultures, but the effect is the same. Where you build a station, where you build a gateway, business will want to be. The public sector in funding this needs to think how it captures the value of the enormous development potential of that place. And most cities I go to, the city owns the land that you choose to build a gateway on. The city gets the benefit. The public who fund this through their tax dollars get the benefit of the uplift. But you only get that quite a sort of walking distance around the station, unless you invest in complementary transport to spread the benefits further. And examples like Kassel in Germany and Lille now in France show how you can spread that. So coming back to Britain, this is a site just outside London. This is not a hive of economic activity. Can you spot a job in this? No, don't bother. This will change when we put a station in the middle of it, a gateway in the middle of it. Through a development corporation which overcomes local jealousies about planning and everything else, and you've talked a lot about that in the last 24 hours. The development corporation on that wasteland will drive, you can see the numbers, 55,000 jobs. But also homes. It's not just a place of jobs, it's a new community, but it only happens because it is so well connected to where business wants to connect to. We had the same debate with Birmingham. The city centre, your CBD, is to the immediately to the north of New Street Station, there away on the left. We are building a new station 600 meters away. Why? It's an area that needs to be regenerated. It's another wasteland. It's been a wasteland for 40 years. But this is the new heartland of Birmingham. This isn't our government-led initiative. This is the city's initiative. This is the city owning this, the city wanting it, the city realizing this changes their whole future. This is their city plan. Rezoned. Yeah, there was zoning. Rip up the zoning. Go away. This is a new world we're in. And it's a mixed development of culture, of industry, of academia. It is a balanced city. It's not just a city of finance. 36,000 jobs. Not a small number. Directly. Remember that ratio, 1 to 2, 1 to 3? 36,000 jobs will drive another 70-odd thousand. That's nearly 100,000 jobs coming out of this investment. That's why we think of it as a game changer. Even on the outskirts of Birmingham, where we will put in a station because it connects the whole region, the local authority there is talking about a new zero-carbon city called UK Central. Look it up on the website. It's at the moment it's an idea, but that is a region taking ownership of its future. And I talked about public funding. Public funding is an inevitable consequence of the risk of something this big. Because at this stage, the risks are not, do you find a dodgy bit of ground? Constructors can work on that. They can own that risk. They can take a share through contracting mechanisms of that risk. They can't take a share of the political risk. And the financing risk is actually beyond, because it is so big. Only governments can drive this. But only governments can drive this if the regions actually want it. And it's that partnership which means that consultation, which is listening to people, not briefing them, becomes the core competence of the project. Not railway engineering, not environmental assessment, not economic assessment. They're all essential, but actually almost the most essential is listening to people. And finding, because you've worked out why, what is the right solution. And that gives you an evidence base that you can take out to the people that you will affect. Who are going, we don't need this, we don't understand why you're doing it. Why are you changing our community? Well, these are the reasons, and it's not because we're transport professionals. The reason is we're changing the country. We took new technology to create a virtual railway. I won't show you the video now, it's not that interesting. I shall go quickly to say we took that video and put it on iPads and took it into people's front rooms, not as it's seen there, but the image of what the railway would look like from their front room, from their bedroom. How noisy would it be? How would you build it? We got the evidence and we can run it and we can say that's our contract with you, someone who's affected by it, for the benefit of hundreds of thousands of people. Last comment, you have to rethink what is this about. Don't build a 19th century railway that just meets the economic needs of the country. Rethink. This is the sketch that our passengers and people who sit in motor cars who never use a train said, this is what we want. If you're going to spend all these zillions of dollars, zillions of pounds to create a new future, build something that our children would be proud of. Don't build something that our grandparents would have recognized. We're making it personal travel on a public transport system because we're rethinking what the hell a railway is. But never forget, we're not doing it for that. We're doing it because we're changing the economic landscape and the social landscape of the country in a way that is sustainable for the 21st and 22nd century. You won't know if you do this here whether you got it quite right. You'll be judged by your grandchildren and you'll be judged by their grandchildren. And that is a hell of a responsibility. So get it right. Thank you.